Isn't that a question to be asking here on our question and answer moment? Um, so I did ask you at the beginning to please put questions into the chat function of the Facebook or the comments function of the Facebook page, and we got some really good ones. And two of them kind of go together. One of them is, what would Jesus be doing given the times we're in? And the other is, what would Ernest Holmes say about the times we're in? Wow. Because why start with a softball, right? So here's my thinking. Ernest Holmes, if I'm right, and segregation or desegregation started in the 50s, then Ernest Holmes lived through that time. He certainly lived through World War II, although I don't believe he fought in it. So he saw his own amount of challenge going on. It's not like he lived in Shangri-La, okay? He lived through all sorts of stuff. And he continued over and over to speak truth. He also refused to participate in the separation. So while it was normal to have the colored church and the white churches listed separately, even segregated in many directories, there was one time that happened in our magazine, and he took care of it very quickly. We don't have colored centers and white centers listed separately because that's just silly. But when Ernest Holmes said it, it was considered pretty normal. Jesus, I would say he would be saying love one another. He would be saying, what is it that we can do that is loving to those who might be feeling like outcasts now? He was the one always going to those who were oppressed or considered less than within the structure of Jewish society under Roman occupation. So I think he would act out of love. He would invite those feeling oppressed to come and sit down at a table with him. He would break bread. I know this because my Arabic family starts with that all the time. And, you know, it's the same part of the world. You start with the food and the drink, and then you talk. Because hospitality in a desert, for a desert people, that is a sacred right. So I think in both cases, they would be simply doing the right thing for unity in the midst of apparent disunity. They would be standing for wholeness. And Jackson had a wonderful idea a few weeks ago to ask Eddie what he thought. So I'm going to let Eddie answer that question too. So singing is how you just sang the perfect song for it. Eddie, what do you think Jesus and or Ernest Holmes would say? And I'm going to unmute you and trust that, whoops, I'm going to try and unmute you. I cannot unmute you. Eddie, maybe you could try to, there you go. And we could put him up on the big screen.
Yes. So the question, what would Jesus do, or what would Buddha do, or what would whoever do at this time? Well, you know, Ernest Holmes, I don't really know what they would do, but I can feel what they would feel right now is the kind of compassion and energy, because everything is love. And I think what Ernest and what Jesus would probably do is remind us that everything that happens is some sort of love, although it may be some kind of distorted version of love, you know. And the only way that we can get past where we are right now is we're going to have to rise above the level of the energy that created it, you know. So that's what I think Jesus and Ernest Holmes would have in common, is to remind us of where we would need to start to heal. And it wouldn't be in the place of anger and violence and of turbulence. It would have to be from a higher viewpoint, as you would look at a map You know, I mean, if you focus in on one street on a map, you won't see all of the surrounding streets. So I think that's probably the mindset that would be between the both of them, actually.
Well, alrighty then. I I think we are in agreement. I was trying to go back and find the other questions. So, folks, if you have a question, please do type it into the comments section in Facebook. I believe one of the other questions that I now cannot find was from John Haas, asking about what can we do from our own loving kindness and to create the world that works for everyone. And a big part of some of the questions was, what is mine to do? What should I be doing? Guys, I don't know what you should be doing. You don't need me or Eddie or Ernest Holmes to tell you what you should be doing. You already know. When you sit down and get quiet, when you go through your heart and mind about what is yours to do, something is coming up. Something is speaking to you. Now, if you're anything like me or anybody I have ever taught or interacted with, we try and pretend we don't know if it's uncomfortable. But we all know. I know I should be exercising more. I know when I should be eating better. I know when I should go apologize for something I said. I know it. One of the things that Ernest Holmes did say is that consciousness is curative. He never said it was comfortable. And so what is ours to do is to get up and go walk our faith. When we get to the end of a prayer, we say, and so it is. We don't say, and so it is for everybody else. And I'm just going to keep living in the same world I started this prayer in. Once you're done with a prayer, it's a different world. And you need to go out and live as if that new world that you just claimed is already so. And that's what brings it into being. So what is mine to do? I'll tell you what is mine to do is to remain in prayer first. Prayer first, prayer first, prayer first. To be aware that just because I have a disagreement in philosophy with someone doesn't mean we shut down the conversation. Tom and I had a wonderful conversation this morning about everything that's going on in the world. And he and I come at it from a little different perspective. But what's mine to do is continue to speak my truth with love, not hang up on somebody and then unfriend them or whatever, although tempting, very tempting. If I think that you're just a bot and you're not real, I'm unfriending you. I'm not friends with computers. Having said that, what I can teach you about it, although it's not what should you do, it's the tools that you can use in order to get clear, in order to make that, to turn up the volume on that still small voice. And that's why we have classes, that's why we have meditation, that's why we have all of it. And something that works for me really is to sit back and listen to the words of the music that just kind of comes up on whatever soundtrack I'm playing. And many, many times it's been Eddie. So I am gonna ask Eddie if he wants to respond to that question. La 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 la. So I'll let Andy do the unmuting of Eddie. Oh, there you go.
Here I am. Oh my goodness! You know, what comes to mind for me is what I feel like mine. What is mine to do is to be that voice. You know, that voice in the middle, because during emotional times, people have a tendency to swing to the drastic places. And see, I'm not afforded the luxury of anger. You know, I'm not afforded that luxury, or taking sides, because, my ministry, I serve everybody, so it doesn't matter, what side of the fence you fall on. I serve everyone. So, like I said, uh, I can't be in that place. And it's my mentor used to tell me that the great way is not difficult for those who have no preference. And I mean, you can stretch that a bunch of different ways, but I feel like, I'm a singer and I'm a writer, I'm a minstrel of spiritual music. So during a time like this, I need to not fall in and be sucked into the anger part of it. Whatever I do to help heal, it has to be done from a place of love and joy. I can't operate from a place of anger and have to get back and have to get revenge, or this person's wrong, or that person's wrong, because, you know, uh, I live in Florida, in the middle of Florida, in Ocala, Florida, and around me there are signs and stickers that said Trump will save us all. And I mean, this is where I live. you know, but here's the deal, and I've gotten in trouble about this before, which of course I don't care, but I have friends. I have friends that I live with in my area who are neighbors, who are good neighbors, who are good people, very good people, good family people, hardworking people that just believe differently than I do. But these are good people, So I don't seek to make them wrong. I seek to understand why you feel the way that you feel. you know and I think from that point, once we can establish a rapport, then we can establish some sort of a communication. But until we stop pointing fingers and can establish some sort of a dialogue, we'll never move forward. It'll just be a continuously going back and forth, a karmic dance. So I feel that what is mine to do is sing with more heart, you know, sing louder the songs that I've already been singing. And I feel that that's what's mine to do. So like you said, Reverend Kathleen, you know what's yours to do. Everybody knows what's theirs to do. So we are in total agreement.
Yay! All right. Um, that does not surprise me. We are often in very close agreement. Not in lockstep, which would be boring as heck. I mean, could you imagine if everybody was the same? There would be no point in potlucks. We would all have, the same macaroni salad all the way down the table, and we're not like that. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of commentary in the comments, and a lot of it is very beautiful. I will say that John Haas says, where do we start? I think maybe we answered that, but just to be really clear about it, in Science of Mind, we start, as we always start, as we begin and end always in prayer. And what we're doing when we go to prayer is returning to our access to the mind of God itself, returning to our Christ consciousness, because that's where we create from. We can move things around at the level of effect. We can go out and protest. We can go out and raise money. We can go out and do lots of things. But that's changing things at the level of effect. So as religious scientists, what we do first is clean up our own consciousness. We go in and see where we are the ones being the oppressor, where we feel like the victim, where we feel like somebody done us wrong, or maybe the ways in which we are doing somebody else wrong. Mm-hmm. So we go in and we clean up our own consciousness. That is where we start. We always start there. And I know many people want me to say something to the effect of start by giving money to the Center for Spiritual Living Prescott, or give money to your favorite charity, or go out and protest and yell and scream and cry. Part of the power of protests is when you see thousands of people coming together in peace and doing what they need to do peacefully, which I am actually seeing a lot of. When they quote unquote, take a knee for the sake of their brothers and sisters in Christ consciousness, no matter what the rest of the situation might be. When they do that, when we do that, it's because we've gotten right in our own consciousness first. And Eddie, did you want to add anything?
Yes, as you were talking, it just reminded me of a story, about the Buddha as he was traveling with his people, through the forest, and a mighty warrior came upon the Buddha, and he had heard that the Buddha was so famous, and he was really jealous of it. So he says, "Well, I'm the mightiest warrior in the world. I'm going to destroy you." And the Buddha said, "Well, yeah, okay, cool." I'm paraphrasing. And the Buddha says, well, cool, but can you grant me two wishes, oh mighty warrior? And he says, "Well, yes, I'll grant you two wishes before I kill you." So the Buddha says, "Okay, you see that flower over there? I want you to take your sword and I want you to chop that flower off of that stalk." So the mighty warrior says, ha! He chops the flower off and then he hands it to the Buddha. And then the warrior says, "Well, what's your next request?" The Buddha says, "Now put it back." So the real power is in creation, not in destruction.
Dude, I am so stealing that for another talk. Everybody forget you just heard that awesome story because I need to use it later. That is a great one. It is true that I think that I can't remember who I'm paraphrasing from, but something about don't fight against what is, replace it, and let the new just kind of push out the old, that which no longer works.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the old is gonna fuss. The old might have something to say about that. But if it's not working, we can lovingly and gently release it. And just because we're lovingly and gently releasing something does not mean other people are going to be happy about it. Understand that. There is one other question here. It's actually a statement, but I think it's meant as a question. It says, "I've received all that I ask from Spirit. I am positive in all that I believe, but Spirit seems to be waiting." And there was an earlier statement about, I've gotten everything that I've asked for, but there's one thing left, and I seem to be running out of time. Alvin, who put that question in there, seems to be under the impression that time has something to do with it. He is not allowed to grow old. He just has to hang around. And so I release that. When I have asked for something and it's not coming through, and it has happened on really important stuff for me, what I find is there is something buried somewhere in my subconscious or the race consciousness that is still blocking. So for instance, let's say I had a friend with cancer and I want to see her healed. I absolutely need to see her healed. And so I start treating for her healing. The problem is I am fighting against something, which is the cancer, and I am creating it over and over and over so that I have something to fight against. The other part is, the race consciousness has been millions of years in the making. The race consciousness is everybody's experiences and beliefs over time. So there might be times when we just have to chip away at it and do the best we can and be loving of ourselves in the meantime. And understand that what we're working against is much deeper even than our own personal subconscious. And so again, rather than working against something, we need to work with expanding our own capacity to love, expanding our own, to ourselves first, expanding our capacity to be in the world, and then trusting. I've had people questioning me this week about why does God allow this, that, and the other. Every time we have some kind of a tragedy, I get that question, or some kind of an upset. what if what's going on in the United States right now, what looks like upset, what looks like chaos, is actually birthing? I've said it before that birthing, I have heard, is messy and painful for the person giving birth. And it may not be too comfortable for what's being birthed either. It is incredibly important to pay attention to what's going on, to support our brothers and sisters who are in pain, and to recognize that this is the race consciousness being healed, and it's going to take a great big shift on all of our parts in order to heal the whole of race consciousness. We didn't start this fire. We don't need to be the ones who direct it either. We didn't start this change. This change started, it could be thousands of years ago now. We're doing our part. So when my prayer seems to not be answered, that is what I think, is that I am still chipping away at whatever the block might happen to be. So Eddie, your turn.
Okay, I'm kind of lost with understanding the question. Is someone who has done everything that they needed to do, or
it's someone who has been praying for the same thing for a very long time and it's not happening?
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, okay, well, I'm very familiar with that, and well, in my own experience, I know that the timeline that you set may not be Spirit's timeline, you know. So, I mean, in my own case, there were things that I prayed for in my life. I mean, when I left CSL Seattle, and I was on the road for 5 years, pretty much living out of my truck, you know. And there was a bunch of things that I prayed for during that time, but I never, they had to come to me. I had to keep, I had to hold that vision, right? You hold that vision, and I wrote a song called Set It and Forget It, because like when you set your intention, you have to release it and let it go, you know, and you can't keep asking for the same thing over and over and over again. You know, you have to believe that it will materialize. So what happened for me is just by constantly holding the vision, you know, and it wasn't like boom, it happened. I looked up and it had happened. You know, I was like, I wasn't even looking, and it found me, and it just like covered me, you know. So that would be my only response to that, is like, you know, you are sometimes not the director of the timing of God's graces and gifts.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I'm going to take us to prayer, because this is what I know. God is, and God is all there is. The only issue we will ever see is a belief in separation from God, and the answer is always letting go of that false belief. And so I speak truth about God. I speak the truth of God's love. I speak the truth of God's power. I speak the truth of this universal life that we are all living, this one mind from which we are all thinking. And I speak the truth of unity here and now. I release separateness. I release the sense of less than and more than, that sense of competition that we have made part of our institutions, that we have inherited from centuries past all the way up to today. I release those false ideas, knowing that within God there is only love, there is only peace, there is only joy. And so I call that forth into our experience right now. I know that there is no one left alone. There is only the all one. And standing in the truth of spirit is not forcing something to happen. It is simply removing the blackout drapes from a room so that we may see truth. We may see what really is. And so having released and removed those old beliefs, everything within me celebrates the light of truth, soaks it in. We stand as one. We stand in love as one. And use this power that truly is within each and every one of us in order to create that world that works for everyone. In order to create homes for everyone, peace for everyone, equality or at least equity for everyone, so that everyone might feel safe walking down a road saying hello to his or her neighbors. I release all the fear-based thinking and simply stand in truth. The truth that already is, the truth that is our divine birthright, I now claim for all of us. The truth of the great abundance of love that is this country, that is within this community, that is within this teaching, and all over the world. I know that our bodies are not attacked by anything that looks like a virus. I stand in the truth of wholeness and release the belief that we are under attack from anything. I know that the truth is there is only God, and therefore there is no second power which can attack anyone or anything, physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. I call forth this truth into form according to the law of cause and effect. I let it do its work, which is automatic and always is yes. I bless it all and call it good, and so it is.